Even as US Vice President JD Vance, currently on a 4-day visit to India, met Prime Minister Narendra Modi for a crucial closed-door meeting, China has now issued a warning to any country, including India, against forging a trade deal with America at CCP's expense, saying dealing with America is like negotiating with a tiger for its skin. The Modi-Vance talks come amid global uncertainty driven by a US-China trade war, which coincides with India and US nearing a historic $500 billion bilateral trade deal. The meeting was followed by delegation-level discussions where both sides welcomed the progress made in negotiations over the India-US bilateral trade agreement, as per an official statement. President Trump had earlier imposed a 36% tariff on Indian goods, but the 90-day pause is being seen by economists as a window to finalize a win-win deal. India, however, asserted it will not be hurried into a deal, nor would it be compelled to make a deal at gunpoint. Sector-specific discussions are set to continue this week, with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman expected to push talks forward during her visit to Washington. Beyond trade, the Modi-Vance dialogue touched on the rising US investments in Indian technology, manufacturing and energy. Elon Musk, in a recent phone call with Prime Minister Modi, hinted at a visit later this year, sparking speculation of Tesla and Starlink entering India. In another milestone, Holtec International received US clearance to co-develop nuclear power plants in India. Both leaders also discussed ways to enhance cooperation in defense, strategic technologies and space. India, a major defense partner with Strategic Trade Authorization 1 status, could decide to deepen collaboration on platforms like the F-35, missile systems, and even undersea technologies. Prime Minister Modi recalled his February visit to Washington, where he and President Trump aligned the MAGA and Viksit Bharat 2047 visions for a closer partnership. China has issued a stern warning to nations negotiating trade deals with the United States that undermine its own interests. The statement comes just days before Indian trade negotiators are heading to Washington to advance talks on a deal aimed at more than doubling bilateral trade before 2030. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of Commerce accused Washington of using reciprocity as a justification to apply unilateral economic pressure, calling it unilateral bullying that violates international norms and represents economic hegemony under the cloak of fairness. The ministry stated, quote, China firmly opposes any party reaching a deal at the expense of China's interests. If this happens, China will not accept it and will resolutely take reciprocal countermeasures. Trying to trade away others' interests for temporary gains is like bargaining with a tiger for its skin. It will only backfire, unquote. The spokesperson further warned of CCP countermeasures against such nations, adding that Beijing has both the determination and the capability to defend its rights. China's warning is significant given that President Donald Trump's administration has imposed 200% plus tariffs on any imports from China. This could cause an economic tsunami for the CCP, impacting nearly $500 billion worth of yearly Chinese exports to America. China desperately needs to find alternate markets fast or risk large-scale industry turmoil across sectors. But unwilling to back down, the CCP has raised its own tariffs on US goods to 125% and refused to enter any trade talks under what it calls unfair conditions. Now, China has long been accused of unfair trade practices, but now, in what can only be termed as an irony, China is accusing the US of protectionism and economic unilateralism. Despite Beijing's warning to resist, quote, US trade coercion, multiple countries, including India, are keen to finalize a trade agreement with the world's biggest economy. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration is negotiating over 70 countries to reduce economic ties with China in exchange for tariff relief. While even Japan and South Korea have sent senior officials to Washington seeking exemptions, formal trade talks between the US and China remain frozen. It remains to be seen who will accept defeat, the White House or the CCP. However, total decoupling from China is not realistic. China is the second largest trade partner of India after America. Unfortunately, India's trade deficit with China is nearly $99 billion, and a trade deal with America could help India reduce this worrisome dependence on Beijing. Ajay Srivastav, head of Global Trade Research Initiative, emphasized that China is embedded at every level of global production hierarchy. He advised that India must strengthen its domestic manufacturing and reduce import dependencies. Meanwhile, during a visit to Vietnam, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged Asian economies to work together. She stated, quote, "As beneficiaries of economic globalization, both China and Vietnam should strengthen strategic resolve, jointly oppose unilateral and bullying acts, uphold the global free trade system, and maintain stable global industrial and supply chains," unquote. Despite the turbulent backdrop, India and US remain optimistic. The bilateral trade deal in the works could more than double current trade volumes of $191 billion to $500 billion before 2030, with the first phase expected by autumn this year. Air India is looking to swoop in on Boeing 737 MAX jets originally meant for Chinese airlines, as Beijing blocks new aircraft deliveries from the US amid escalating tariffs, now as high as 125% on American goods. The Tata Group-owned carrier in urgent need of aircraft is in talks to acquire these grounded jets, potentially giving it an edge over domestic rival Indigo. So far, Air India has taken delivery of 41 such aircraft. It's expected to receive 9 more by June, bringing the total to 50, and is keen to secure even more from Boeing's stranded inventory. Malaysia Aviation Group is also reportedly negotiating for a similar deal. Air India Express, the carrier's budget arm, is eyeing these jets to scale up quickly, especially since 140 new narrow bodies from its 2013 mega order won't start arriving until March 2026. With some planes temporarily grounded for retrofits and others being phased out, these redirected Boeings could be a lifeline for Air India. However, cabin configurations and partial payments made by Chinese airlines could complicate transfers. Still, with China cooling on Beijing and Airbus gaining the upper hand, Air India might just turn a global trade standoff into a local growth opportunity. Have your say. Do you support the government's strategy to align with America and not China in this global trade war? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button, and subscribe to Inconnect News.